Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Dr. Manon.
So welcome to the Healers Café. And today I have with me Rebecca Kase. And she is a licensed clinical social worker specializing in trauma therapy. She's also the owner of Kase and Company, which is an EMDR training and consulting business. And she does also yoga, which she instructs, and specializes in mind-body psychotherapy work. So first of all, welcome to this easygoing discussion on what's it like to be doing what you're doing. And first question though, how did you get there?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to share space with you. I got to where I am because I just found psychology to be absolutely fascinating when I took my first psych class in undergrad and just felt this calling, like this is my dharma, this makes sense to me. And so I pursued an undergraduate degree in psych and then got my master's in social work because there's just so much you can do with that degree. And I really specialized in trauma because of my own trauma healing journey, what it's been like to just recover and heal from my trauma history, and just really falling in love with the power of the human spirit to overcome and to grow and to find even greater resiliency from who we were before through our journey of transformation and healing. It's pretty amazing and awe-inspiring to hold space for people in that way.
I relate. Yeah. So we all come to it somewhat honestly.
Yeah.
Which it's interesting. It's so what's the biggest lesson you've learned from coming to it, through it, to what you are now, the space you're able to create?
I think that one of my biggest lessons is you have to feel to heal. And, in our Western society, we get so infatuated with nervous system hacks and here's a magic pill or here's a magical intervention and it'll fix this right away. And that's just not how our neurobiology works. And when we really lean into doing the work and we feel the feelings we need to feel and the sensations, and we're with the grief and the loss and the trauma, and there is a way through it. And we often so quickly assume that to feel it means we're going to succumb to it or we're going to drown in it. And in fact, when you lean in and you feel everything you need to feel, it gets you closer to healing. And in that journey is where I think the juiciest lessons lie for our own growth. I think back to some of my own trauma healing experiences and just the hundreds and hundreds of clients I've worked with, and some of the meaning that can be made after we heal of, I'm so resilient, or I'm so strong. I never would have known how strong and resilient I was if I wasn't forced to really look inside.
Right.
So feel to heal is really my mantra.
No, and makes sense. So, just for people who might not know what you're talking about on that level, right? In standard or conventional medicine, when people have feelings that come up, whether it's strong fears or like body anxiety or this sort of malaise, then usually the treatment of choice, or the first ones, is, like you said, pills, so the idea is to dull and numb and make it go away, medicate it away one way or another, right? And this is really based on deep misconceptions of the healing process, which, is not surprising because it's really disease management. So it's a way of managing, but it's not. Managing and healing are two completely different processes, right? Yeah. So explain maybe a case that comes to mind, what feeling means.
Yeah. I guess a client that I was working with a very long time ago who originally presented with a lot of numbing and avoidance behaviors, which I just want to also name that everything we do is an attempt to cope. And so whether it's substance use or it's binging on TV or food or checking out on social media, it's all an attempt to regulate the nervous system. But when we can be more mindful of how are these patterns of coping serving me and how am I avoiding, what are they achieving for me, and are there other ways I can go about that, I think a lot of doors open. So, someone may present with, a lot of avoidance strategies of, binging or alcohol use or substance use or overexercise or sleeping too much or not, whatever that is. And as we slow down and invite some curiosity of what is the kind of knee-jerk narrative that your nervous system is going to, is that if I feel these things, I will spontaneously combust. Usually it's some kind of disastrous story like that we haven't actually verbalized because it's implicit. And implicit meaning it's kind of unconscious. And so when we can just slow down and start to get curious about what is the narrative that goes along with this? Oh, if I feel these feelings, they're more than I can tolerate. They're overwhelming. It's too much. And yes, they may feel overwhelming, but how can we invite in some techniques and strategies so that you can kind of titrate your exposure to them and change your relationship with them so that at some point you can see those feelings and sensations as messengers. I always think of Rumi's poem, The Guest House. It's one of my favorite poems. And it's essentially, invite all of those feelings in because they are all messengers from beyond. And so when we can start to learn to trust our nervous system, to trust like that I can feel feelings and sensations and not explode into flames, then a lot of opportunity for insight and knowledge and wisdom are presented for us.
Yeah, no, very well said. Yeah. And your experience with how long, I've been asking several people this because I have my own here, but how long do you need to stick with an emotion for it to sort of dissipate?
In the therapeutic approach of dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, which is pretty well known, one of the techniques we work on is exposing and busting some of our myths that we have. And one of our myths is that, this feeling and sensation is going to last forever.
Right.
And in fact, when we get really curious about that, and sometimes it's too hard to do that on our own. And so that's where having a therapist or a coach or a mentor to support that process is really helpful. But in fact, feelings and sensations rise and fall and run their course usually very quickly. And so just a practice that I've learned, I've studied a lot of Buddhism and obviously a lot of yoga, but just a practice I've learned from some of my Buddhist meditation and mindfulness work is when I'm feeling distressing feelings, just being able to sit down and just name it and just saying, I feel anxiety. I feel anxiety. I feel fear. I feel fear. And if I can just sit with it and I just call it what it is, and I stay out of the narrative, I'm anxious, so I'm a bad person and I did something terrible. And here I am in the story. And I just try and keep my point of focus on the feeling, on the sensation. I always find it changes pretty quickly. Pretty quickly.
Yeah. I've my experience with that is about 90 seconds. That's what I used to tell my patients. Just stay focused, 90 seconds, you'll be fine. And it does often leave before that, but to focus on something for 90 seconds is actually quite a thing, right? Because to stay with the feeling and not, like you said, the narrative, right? Because the narrative just takes you away from it completely, right? Because you can say a million things to yourself or revisit trauma or versions of it, or I mean, we have an amazing imagination, whether it's true or not true. It doesn't seem to matter at all. But if it occupies us, we can't do the work. Like it comes back, right? So yeah, so tell us a little bit about EMDR. How does that work? Again, somebody who has never experienced it, what do you do? What happens?
Yeah. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a super long term, so we just call it EMDR. And it is an evidence-based therapy for trauma. So what does that mean? If something is evidence-based, that means that there's been a lot of research that supports its effectiveness. So it is a recognized first-line treatment for trauma and PTSD by a number of leading health organizations like the World Health Organization and SAMHSA and Department of Veterans Affairs. And EMDR really focuses on the storage of memory. And when we go through adverse experiences in our life, stressful experiences, traumatic experiences, really scary experiences, they can overwhelm our nervous system. And when our nervous system gets overwhelmed, it can impede our ability to process and make sense of experiences. And that's kind of the heart of trauma and PTSD and trauma responses, is that your nervous system was overwhelmed and it hasn't been able to really digest the experience. And so the past remains the present. That's a common saying in the trauma field of therapy, of the past is the present. Your nervous system continues to interact with your present day as if you were still going through that past traumatic experience. So much like your digestive system, like when you eat too much, what happens to your digestive system? You don't feel good, right? Because that system got overwhelmed and it couldn't do what it was meant to do, which is digest your food. So your nervous system is similar with experiences that overwhelm it and it can't digest them or metabolize them. So in EMDR, we identify specific memories that are correlated with the symptoms that you're really wanting to address in therapy. And there's a process that you go through with your therapist to kind of uncover some of those memories. Sometimes people come and they're very clear about what those are, like I was sexually assaulted, or I am a combat veteran. And there's a lot of times that they're not so evident because they can be really sneaky. You know, pretty much all of us have experienced something traumatic, but most of us don't go on to develop PTSD or significant symptoms. And so trauma can really be understood as anything that just stresses and overwhelms your nervous system. So in EMDR, we identify what those memories are, those experiences are that are contributing to the stress that you're experiencing present day, to the flashbacks or nightmares or anxiety or depression or sleeplessness. And the EMDR protocol asks the client to think about the memory and feel the memory. So you think about it, you notice the feelings and sensations that are associated with it. And then your therapist adds what's called bilateral stimulation. So bilateral stimulation is provided in the form of eye movement. So your therapist kind of moves their hand in front of your face and you follow their fingers back and forth from side to side, or it could be audio tones that alternate in your ears back and forth, or even just tapping, tactile tapping back and forth on maybe the shoulders or the thighs. And as you receive bilateral stimulation within kind of the EMDR treatment approach, there's like a whole treatment approach that we use. It's not this simple, but the memory starts to change and shift, and people state that, gosh, I can't really see it anymore. It's foggy. I don't feel those feelings anymore. My body is calmer. And at the end of reprocessing or integrating a memory, people are left feeling, I feel regulated, I feel calm, I feel grounded. Sometimes they're even able to look back on the memory with really adaptive statements like, I'm a survivor. I did the best I could. I can trust myself. And so at the end of EMDR, when you think of that memory that was a terrible experience, you wouldn't wish it on anyone, maybe you wouldn't want to go through it again, you're just left with a lot of adaptive resiliency, which is going to contribute to your continued health and wellness. And in fact, after EMDR therapy, what research shows is that people continue to get better. So it doesn't really wear off. Now, bilateral stimulation sounds super weird for a lot of people. It sounds really strange. There's been a lot of research on it, and there's some real neurophysiological things that are happening when we add bilateral stimulation when people think about a memory. And in reality, we are bilateral beings. I mean, we walk bilaterally, we run bilaterally. Most of us read bilaterally from one side to the other. When you walk into a new space, you scan the room kind of bilaterally, looking around. So bilateral is just part of the way that we integrate information. And so EMDR just harnesses this natural ability of the nervous system to heal and process experiences to a point that we call of adaptive resolution. So you can make adaptive meaning of it. Like, I survived, I'm strong, and it feels resolved in your nervous system. It feels like it's done.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting because it's not what the therapist says.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're staying with your feeling and emotion, and it's really the movement of the pupils, following. It seems that breaks, or does it just bring it more present, like you more present? Like, I wonder if it really just separates the intensity, because basically if you're in that state, you're living it, like you said, in the present.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're actually doing something present,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of puts the other one out of focus a little bit, though you're in it, right?
Yeah. So you're onto something.
What would your life be like if you were pain-free? If you were one of the millions who suffer from chronic pain, the thought of just one day without it may seem impossible. This is often because conventional medicine tends to fall short in the treatment of pain, opting to prescribe pills or recommend surgery rather than getting to the root cause of the problem. But if you are suffering with emotional or physical pain, there is hope. Join the founder and CEO of Bowen College, Manon Bolliger, live online for your body-mind reboot. Learn how to listen to your symptoms and get to the root cause of your pain. Plus, be trained in basic Bowen therapy moves so that you can reboot your body for optimal health. You don't have to live in pain. You can heal. Stop the pain pill cycle by visiting www.yourbodymindreboot.com to learn more and to register.
So one of the pieces of how we believe EMDR to work is that you can maintain dual awareness. So dual awareness is, I'm thinking about this memory from the past, but I still feel present. And, sometimes we lose that. Like, if we have a full-blown flashback, we've lost the present, right?
Yeah.
But in EMDR, we really work to keep kind of one foot anchored in the present. So your nervous system can take in that was then and this is now.
Yeah.
And then the other role that bilateral stimulation seems to serve is it's very distracting. So when you're trying to think about this experience and you feel those feelings and sensations, and someone is saying, and follow my fingers, or notice these tones beeping back and forth in your ears, it's distracting. And there's some really interesting neurobiological research on this concept called taxation of working memory, which is essentially, if you think about something that's upsetting to you and you're distracted at the same time, it seems to like break the memory. Memories lose their emotional charge. There's also been research on this when people think of something upsetting and they play Tetris. So there's something about that distraction that helps your nervous system to integrate it. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating, because simple things work,
Yeah.
and this is very simple because, we're not that, we're super complex, but we're not that complicated to unravel, right? Like, we're so programmed to want to heal that it's a question of finding the key to sort of get in and allow this, to take place. So if somebody comes to you that is, or believes there may have been trauma, right? Like, there's a lot of trauma that isn't, you start to become aware that something must have happened, but you don't know what, right? How would you approach it with all the different, modalities and systems that you have at your disposal?
Yeah. Well, I think that the first and most important piece is just to stay curious and to tune into the part of you that has this sense of knowing that something happened, even if you don't have explicit declarative memory of it. And that can certainly be the case when we're working with pre-verbal trauma. You know, I was too little, so I don't actually have explicit memory because I was 2 years old, right? I mean, your explicit memory doesn't develop until about 4 to 7 years old. So really focusing on the story that your body is sharing and leaning into that with curiosity. And we can target experiences in EMDR, even if clients don't have actual memories of them. So I have a client recently who we were working with EMDR, and we were working on a memory of being in the womb and having this sense of not being wanted or loved. And even though she doesn't have a concrete, I really remember that time, her body remembers that. And there's a lot of distress associated with that. With that being kind of the beginning of your life, it's like a foundational experience that has contributed to a lot of distress and a lot of self-loathing and just feeling like I'm not worthy and I don't deserve love. And so targeting that experience helped her be able to feel that she's deserving and worthy of love, and that it wasn't me. That was about something wasn't right with my mom, because who wouldn't want to love their child? How could that possibly be about me? And so we were able to work through that with EMDR by just staying really curious about the story her body shared.
Yeah, no, it's very powerful to listen to the body, because it's actually more confusing to listen to the mind.
Yes.
Because we make up so much, right? And I think that's human nature, because in our levels of understanding, we readapt the sort of the chronology or the history, in a sense, right? We try and make sense of it, which is all sense, right? It's not necessarily a body-based feeling space. It doesn't do that. Now, out of curiosity, have you had people that became aware through any of the therapies you've used that couldn't handle the reality that they therapeutically got to, or that they, in other words, was the therapy overbearing to them?
I think that when you are in the role of being a healer, if you aren't mindful and thoughtful about the power that you hold, and if you don't pace interventions alongside the readiness of your client's nervous system and their body, yes, you could definitely make things worse. I sometimes use the metaphor of, imagine that you are getting ready to run a marathon and you just had a cheeseburger and some cheesy fries and a liter of Coke. How do you think that's going to go? It's not going to go very well, because your body doesn't have the resources and nutrients it needs to do that. And so that is a really important part of trauma therapy, of pacing your interventions and your work alongside your client's nervous system. We don't want to go too fast and flood the nervous system. That is a hallmark of trauma, flooding and overwhelm. But we also don't want to go so slow that we're avoiding the work, which is also the other hallmark of trauma, avoidance and flooding, that swinging pendulum from avoidance to flooding. And so that takes some skill, I think, to find that, and it also requires a lot of feedback from your client of asking, how are things going, and tracking symptoms and tracking how they're doing with interventions. But I think it's about being very mindful of your role.
Yeah. And I think therapies lend themselves differently, in other words, there might be some therapies that are more, it's always in the hands of the doer, but and so sensitivity is always required. But I think there are some therapies that might be, or require different skill sets, maybe, like I know in the work I do, which also releases trauma, it's a hands-on, very gentle technique. It's called Bowen therapy. And you have to look at the reactions of the body. Not necessarily, if the person says, whoa, stop, okay, that's you do pay attention to that. But you might look at like whether they're shivering, or they're starting to cry, or whether they're too hot or too cold, or there's big body changes, that would signal, hold off and let's see what happens. But I think that provided you do that preliminary level of care, I haven't found that people can't handle what they discover. Like my philosophy is that when it's time, it comes out, and you're at the right place at the right time for the right reason, for the release of what it is that you need to learn. But I agree, it has that little piece where you've got to be aware.
Yeah, timing is important. And I definitely resonate with, I've worked with clients over the years who have had some memories that were outside of conscious awareness arise and come to their awareness. And whenever that's happened, they've always reported to me, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful that I know this now, because now I make more sense to myself.
Right. Yeah.
And it is helpful, but there's a lot of people who have that sense of, I think something happened, and they never get that answer. So then the other piece is, how do you find peace with just the high likelihood that you'll never know, and not chase after having to know, so that you can put that story together in your mind. And that's hard work.
So how do you counsel people when they're in that state, that there's more, like there's a lot of, I've experienced that too. It's like, well, oh, okay, I have a sense, but shall we continue and continue? Like they're searching for the final thing, which I agree with you, may or may not show up, right?
Yeah, I think it's about learning to practice acceptance of, how can I stay curious based on the information I have in front of me, which is usually based on information your body is giving you. But also not kind of getting worked up in this anxious kind of neurotic way of like, I must know the answer. I must know the story, and finding peace with, you are who you are, whether or not you know. And how can you just find acceptance and peace there? And that might be through spiritual work, or mindfulness, or self-compassion, or, CBT, or ACT, or EMDR even. I think it's really specific to the client, but we're narrative creatures, and we love to make stories, as you kind of referenced earlier. And that's such a gift. And it's also a curse, because we like to create stories, and sometimes those stories are really hopeful and they're very entertaining, but sometimes our stories are very false and inaccurate. I would say probably a lot of the narratives we hold are pretty false, because they're from a very biased lens, a very limited lens, our own lens. And this is where I've personally found Buddhism and yoga philosophy to be really helpful, of just practicing non-attachment and letting go, and just being present with what is. I'm okay right now. I'm alive right now. Whatever happened is gone and in the past, and all I have is the present.
No, I love your last statement. That's but it's so true, and that is the way out of our minds. Out of the narrative, out of the story, is not to take it so seriously, to see that separation, and to be the witness of what is.
Yes, I love that piece of, just finding the separation and not taking yourself so seriously. That's one of my favorite mantras I share with people all the time. Just don't take yourself so seriously. And I think also getting curious with your clients of, if you knew the answer to this, or if you knew the story, what do you feel that would give you?
Right.
And it
right.
might be, well, I make more sense now. Okay, but how can you find peace with, like, you make sense just as you are, as who you are.
Yeah.
And if you learn this story, are there consequences to that? What are the benefits? How could that be distracting? How could that change your view of who you are? You know, it's deep
Yeah.
there. Sometimes you don't want to know the story. Like, I had surgery recently, and you know, I was asking my doctor a little bit about, like, so what are you going to be doing? And he's like, are you sure you want to know what I'm going to do? And he shared a little bit, and I was like, actually, I don't think I want to know. I don't need that story in my mind. Yeah, truth is power, and truth is also very dangerous sometimes, of knowing some of that stuff, I think.
Well, you have to be prepared, or you want the knowledge, you know, like some people, even if they get every little detail, it actually helps them.
Mhm.
But other temperaments, they don't, like it actually becomes overwhelming, right? So
Mhm.
I think it's to trust yourself, what you need to know and what you don't need to know, you know, and question it. You know, so
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
sure. Anyway, our time is like up. Is there any last statement, and also where can people reach you? We'll have, you know, where to reach you underneath, but any last insight or share you'd like to make?
Yeah, I think my last piece is just going back to what you had asked earlier of, you know, what's one of your favorite sayings or ways of being? I don't remember your exact question, but just be humble and be brave. I think that that's the best way we can show up to our lives and to our own healing, is being humble, recognizing we're all pretty small and fragile, but being really brave at the same time, as much as we can. You can find me at Kase and Co, KASE and co.com. And you can also find me at RebeccaKase.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you, Manon.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Dr. Manon.